So the old wall at the top of the mine, which I said was very interesting, travels for miles and miles around this whole area. There's no evidence of a chapel, as I say. So within at least a 2 mile radius. There is an old chapel at the bottom of, it's called Four Lane Ends in this area. Four Lane Ends, I'd say at the top of Tottington is probably the closest place, Walshaw Village. Anyways, Four Lane Ends has got a tiny little chapel, but that's still in existence. So there's not been knocked down. It's too small to have any graves like this and too old. So, as I say, I'm just going to have a quick look around here, and at the bottom we're going to find something, a bit of an anomaly, but strange things like this drive me nuts. So, a bit of geology in there. We're trying to be as brief as possible, but irrigation had improved techniques around 3000 BC. I think we're up to 3000 BC in other playlists, which is actually 5000 years ago. I've been double checking to make sure I don't get the two mixed up. I've said in the past I'm not particularly religious, and then I'm into physics. And what that has done is mashed up my counting. So as a physicist, you say 5000 years ago. As a world of the Christianity as we know it, you say 3000 BC, but it's led to a few mistakes. I admit that, but it's not my fault, because I write down YA, which means years ago. So I put 5000 years ago, or MYA, million years ago, and not BC or AD all the time. So I'm going to start trying to stick to one way or another. So in 3000 BC, which was 5000 years ago, irrigation, but much improved on the older irrigation, which I have spoke about in the past. So the aqueducts now are travelling in Rome and places like that 150 miles. Sorry, Rome hasn't quite established itself just yet. So the first ones are actually Mesopotamia, and well, I think the Nile Delta would have evidence of canals and water channels. Alexandria, which is quite a modern version of Egypt, which was Roman and Egyptian. It wasn't conquered by Rome. Cleopatra married Antony. So they merged together. You got to go back 2,000 years, 3,000 years to imagine the world. Women aren't inferior to men in this day and age. She's a queen, you see. So a lot of people think that Rome conquered Egypt because they had a queen and he was a king. They didn't. They merged. They got married. She had just as much power and respect as he did. Some people got greedy with power, and that's why Egypt fell, because I don't think they were greedy. They were more a spiritual race. They covered everything in gold, and they didn't really, you know what I mean, they didn't have much need for that. They liked to be very showy, for example. They didn't have great armies. They did have an army, but obviously the Romans had the best army, and the Greeks, it looks like the Greeks started to take from other places and, you know, sort of not give them the credit for it, but the Romans suddenly undertook this taking over of the world, the Roman Empire, as it were. Learned everything it knows as it went and adapted it into Roman techniques. So everything they learnt from building in Egypt went into Roman techniques. Everything from spirituality and the gods they took from Egypt. You know, they took what they could from the Greek warriors, which was crossbows and, you know, all the weaponry that the Greeks were using, and they incorporated that into theirs. So the Romans were lethal. They were very advanced. They were, you know, they were ruthless. They weren't barbarians. They were probably more intelligent than the Vikings and the English at the time, which were druids. You know, they were quite scientific methods. So there you go. But Rome did not conquer Egypt. There's not much told about Egypt. Everybody just disappears, but Cleopatra left to start Alexandria on the banks of the Nile, which you have to look into. They have a son together who is of mixed race, I suppose. He's Egyptian and Roman, and well, basically, it's a very long story from there. So it shapes the world as we know it. This is what I say, it's like the first massive ancient world war, and turbulent times. A lot of history has been wiped out as well. We went through a dark age and didn't relearn everything we already knew before, for after like 1,000 years of Roman occupation, Viking occupation, Anglo-Saxon invasion. Yeah, so there we go. Roman road goes all the way to Blackburn. This Roman road goes all the way to Blackburn as far as I know. Fortunately, I've been hit by some pretty severe weather. This is the smallest gap I've had. It's really cold. You're not going to be able to hear. There's a straight line all the way to Manchester. Look. You can only see it through that gap there. So people of Greater Manchester, this is the highest point I'm investigating at Affetside. It's reported to be half at the side of Bolton, half at the side of Bury. It's actually Bury now. Bury Council pushed the border of the borough just over the road over there. But by far and away, without shadow of a doubt, the most interesting thing here is the walls. You can't really see. I've got to come back here on a sunny day in the summertime. Just going to get how straight it is. By far and away, without shadow of a doubt, the walls, these are the original Roman walls that I'm alongside. You know what, I'm right in the countryside as you can get, I'm having problems with traffic noise. Pure monument in the distance, but these are the original stone walls. As I say, they're proving to be far more interesting than the actual road itself. So, like any typical tourist or hitchhiker or whatever you want to call it, rambler, I'm going in a pub, Pack Horse Pub. It's just at the top of this hill, and I'm going to have a sit down and a warm up and a think about what to do next. Yeah, I've been hit by really severe weather and traffic noise, but I need to get the road and the wall obviously. I've done this before where you can actually cut the noises out as you walk along. It just takes too long, and it's literally a freezing cold wind that. This is the original Roman wall at the side. That's well more fascinating, isn't it? So we're just going to finish the playlist off here. I'm in Affetside village. These are old ways. It's a very old place. It's along, somewhere in the middle of the British Isles, to be fair. But this cross is actually at the highest point in the area. It's around 876 metres above sea level. But exactly where the cross is, that is the exact highest point, which is quite interesting, I think. All the way to Blackburn from Manchester. Actually goes from Castlefield to there's Manchester, all the way along to Rivchester. So it's quite a long way to be a straight road. Yeah, my hands can't literally hold the camera any longer, but I can't not film it because I've come here. I hope that makes sense. But I've had a few, 30% of this shoot for these Romans I've done during the winter because it's not as far to travel. Well, it is, it's a bit of a walk, but 30 to 35% of everything I filmed I've just had to delete due to wind or rain or bad weather or the dark dropping on us. So we know we're on the Roman road, you know how straight it is. So you can check that yourself, Ribchester to Manchester, which is all linked to Chester. So there's a link there definitely. There we go, some throw your something, dog, something. Either keep your dog on the lead or pick up your dog's mess. Peace out. 60k. I'm more interested in the other things I can find in these areas. So, an end here in an old ancient village called Affetside. We finally got there along the Roman road, you see. I'm far more fascinated in things like this stone, as always. Recycled big red sandstones all the way around it. You might say. So the stones have probably been there a lot longer. See, been used to rebuild again. More than likely. No one's really sure of the age of the cross and all the ancient stonework in the area as we've seen. So I'll be coming back here to start my next section of videos when the weather's slightly better. It has improved now, but it's cold and it's about to have the nightfall on us. So you're getting the old stone houses and the cross. So I'm going to walk down. I'm not just going to keep switching the camera on and off, getting little bits. And on those old stones there.